This is Helen Barlow at One Line Design, and today I'm talking to Julie Sykes. Julie is a previous client of ours, and I've just been really interested with everything that's been happening with COVID-19 as to how that's been impacting small businesses like myself, like Julie, and other clients that we work with. Particularly interested in this whole concept of new normal, which is a very subjective term because we all do things differently, and we all have our own version of normal. So I wanted to chat with our clients about how they've adapted, what challenges they've been facing, and just bring a bit of insight into how small businesses are navigating.
My name's Julie Sykes. I'm York based and I'm a communications professional. So generally I work with larger business on their change communication programs, things like mergers, acquisitions, IT transformations, service redesigns, that kind of thing, where businesses have got a big project going on. I also help businesses on smaller ad hoc projects. So that might be things like report writing, or things like writing crisis communications plans, which of course is quite kind of apt at the moment. I think, well, a couple of things really. From a personal perspective, it was a not unexpected, but a bit of a pain to say the least, because we'd actually just had our kitchen ripped out, so we've been surviving lockdown without a kitchen. So I think there was a little bit of cursing the first couple of days, albeit kind of realised that things were definitely for the greater good, and you know what will be, and we'll be managing fine. I think from a business perspective, because organisations tend to hire me for projects, there's certainly been a slowdown in the market. You know, I was looking for my next project anyway, and certainly from kind of the end of February onwards, there was a lot less coming up on the market. So that was kind of frustrating, really. So I was managing with the sort of smaller pieces of work that I mentioned, things like sort of report writing and that kind of thing. Just to sort of keep things tidy. But it's been a good opportunity to try and adapt and develop my business, the Comms Guide, more and probably rather quicker than I'd originally anticipated.
And what have you kind of thought in terms of your strategy for the Comms Guide? What kind of things are you hoping to achieve with that at the moment?
I think for me at the moment it's kind of getting the word out there a little bit more, so that partly when businesses, it tends to be larger businesses I mostly work with, are looking to restart their projects or maybe getting some extra resources rather than doing it in-house. It's me they think of, and I want to be seen as the expert in change comms. I've got a lot of experience in that area, but also actually for a couple of years now, I've been planning to do more online with the Comms Guide. So those smaller and medium-sized businesses who still might be going through quite a lot of change in their business, they might be going through a merger with a competitor, for example, that kind of thing. They still need some help, but they wouldn't necessarily hire somebody like me for months on end to help them out with that. So I've now developed the commsguide.com website with some free resources to help support those businesses. And there's things like helping communicate, sort of tips for communicating with employees on furlough, that kind of thing. And I'm developing resources at the moment around merger and acquisitions, because I think there's going to be more of that hopefully post COVID-19. So, I mean, for me, I wanted to make sure, as I say, that I'm seen as the expert in change communications, so that the content that I'm coming up with, whether that's written content or visually, how I'm looking for, and you guys helped me develop this for my brand, that's positioning me as being that expert. You know, I'm seen as somebody who's credible, who's trusted, what they're saying looks good, and how it looks, and all kind of ties together looks good. So yeah, certainly with the branding side of things, I've been using this sort of little guide that you guys put together with all my fonts and colour palette, etc. And then taking that one step further to create graphics on a little design web interface called Canva that viewers may have come across. I use the paid for version. It costs about £10 a month, something like that. And that's super helpful because I can save all my colours and fonts in there. And then it's really easy to create things like bespoke sizes of pictures and graphics for Facebook posts, for Twitter, for LinkedIn, for Pinterest. I've just kind of gone on Pinterest with the comms guide as well. And really sort of keeping things consistent throughout all my platforms, which when you're sort of DIYing in a one-person business and you're doing it all yourself can sometimes be a bit of a challenge and a reminder that you need to do that to be projecting a really strong brand.
Yeah, and I think what's great about just having something so simple as a one-pager kind of crib sheet is that it gives you those boundaries, doesn't it? It kind of, make sure that you can be consistent without having to overthink things in any way. Have you sort of analysed at this point in time? Because I guess we're, 12 weeks down the line from when this sort of big change happened. How have you seen things change in that time? Have you seen a bit of impact from what you've been doing online and little successes sort of happening?
Little things. I mean, it always takes time and people aren't going to magically suddenly have projects overnight. But certainly developing things like the Comms Guide's Twitter account, which I kind of set up ages ago and then just not really done anything with. So I've been more proactive in that, trying to get a little bit of interaction going. LinkedIn, where I've always sort of had a reasonably strong presence, putting some of my free content out there. And that's been getting sort of smallish but positive response where people have been seeing it. And I wasn't really posting kind of blog posts and things like that on LinkedIn before, even though I've been on there for years. So, for me, it's just a really good opportunity to kind of get the word out there so that when people are ready to look for their change communications resources, when they're ready to start their IT transformation projects, the service redesign projects, if they're going through a merger, a relocation, all those big changes that impact on employees, customers and other stakeholders, it's kind of me that they're thinking of. They're like, oh yeah, Julie, that Comms Guide girl, we'll get in touch with her. Yeah. I kind of plan to have a little bit of downtime after my last sort of project anyway. It's just that this has kind of turned into far more of an extended downtime than I anticipated. But yeah, I mean, it's not been without its challenges. I know sort of the first couple of weeks of lockdown, everybody's adjusting kind of mentally, physically, and that was quite tough. And I don't think I was really that productive the first couple of weeks. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I'm pretty sure it was not just me who was finding that difficult and like adjusting to the new normal. But once I kind of got a bit more settled into it, like your head's kind of adjusted to the new strangeness of queuing outside Tesco's 2 meters apart and all that lovely and weird and wonderful stuff, and not being able to see your family and things. And once your head's kind of got around that, I found that I felt a lot more productive and I was able to progress building the website for the Comms Guide, the social media, etc. And also doing some personal stuff, like I've been learning bits of Spanish on and off for years with mixed success. So I've been doing a few lessons, listening to some podcasts, and I actually feel like I've improved, which is good news as having been at a static level for years. And trying to keep my mind and body active as well. I'm a bit of a gym buddy, and I know when lockdown was announced and a few days before when it was announced, obviously the gyms were quite rightly closing to keep people safe. First thing hubby and I were doing were trialling the internet to figure out how we could get some gym kit. So we've got some matting and stuff set up in our yard, and we do little gym workouts and do a bit of yoga and try and get him to do a bit of yoga as well. And that's been good, just sort of trying to keep that balance of, yeah, business is important and obviously need to make a living, but actually sort of looking after ourselves mentally as well has been really important.
I think that I've found that really powerful, actually, just how much that conversation about well-being and work-life balance has come to the front as a result of what's happened, because similarly to you, I mean, it took me longer than 2 weeks, I think, to adjust. I think it was about week 9 where I was like, I don't think I can keep this up. We need to realign how things work. But it's definitely, maybe because of the isolation, and we're not meant to be isolated creatures, really, or we're not meant to sort of live like this, that I think it's really brought some very important conversations about work-life balance, well-being, mental health, that were being talked about but weren't seen as important as they are now. I've seen some interesting things about how well-being should actually be, a section in your business plan.
So when I'm advising clients, when I work with clients and thinking about their communications with their employees on furlough, or not on furlough, working from home, for example, or those who are still going into the workplace, it's like, make sure that people know what support is available, like things like employee assistance programs, if the business is the kind of business or a large enough business that might have one, but also other resources like Mind, and those kind of people who are the experts in being able to advise and support people with mental health. I mean, for me, exercise really works, but that wouldn't necessarily work for everybody. There's a couple of examples. One I've done for a utility organisation in Yorkshire, and this is kind of going back a couple of years. And every sort of year, they have to sort of submit to Ofgem and show the results of some of the work they've been doing around stakeholder engagement. So with that particular client, I was working with different people in the business to understand actually what is it we have done. So that would be a little bit of research and people sending me stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily do all the research or in that particular case, and then pulling that together into a bit of a story that kind of told the tale of how the organisation had taken on board learnings from the previous year, what it had done, what the strategy and plan was, and then what it delivered, what the outcome was, and what they'd be looking to do in the future. And that was a particularly sort of successful piece of work. Organisations are actually ranked by Ofgem in terms of how well they do there, and they're given a financial incentive that's correspondent to how well they've worked on stakeholder engagement. And the previous year, out of 6 organisations, this particular organisation was 5th, and they moved up to 3rd with the I'm sure not just because of the report I've written, because clearly there was the work that went behind the report as well. Actions were actually taken, but I was certainly able to tell the story and was really, really proud of that.
Got any exciting news to share about what's coming in the next couple of weeks, maybe? How you might be, same like you, I've sort of like, I need a change of scenery every now and then. So we've started doing mini holidays in the lounge. So that's a new exciting thing that's happening here, is I've started setting up a pretendy swimming pool in the lounge and making mocktails with the toddler, just so that we can feel like we've been on some kind of summer holiday this year. What are your plans for over the next couple of weeks? Anything exciting happening?
Yeah, actually, next week we finally get the kitchen delivered after 3 months without one. So I don't think I will ever have been so glad to see a kitchen ever, really. So yeah, we're excited about that. I'm definitely ready to have an oven. So yeah, that's a super exciting thing. And I think today we're actually going for a walk in the countryside, which will be the first time we've done that in about 3 months as well. Trying to go somewhere where it's easy to social distance and all that good stuff. So yeah, those are the kind of personal things. And then continuing with articles and posting on the Comms Guide website. I posted an article this week about considering different stakeholders in a merger and acquisition. So that's kind of teeing up with, in a couple of months, launching some more resources specifically around mergers and acquisitions as well. So yeah, quite a lot to get stuck into, both from a personal point of view, with being able to cook with an oven, yay, and some more resources for businesses on the commsguide.com website.
That's fantastic, and we will certainly post the links to those resources underneath the video in the comments on our YouTube, and share like crazy on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really interesting to get an insight into what you do, and also I think hopefully very inspiring for other small businesses as to how you can, just take stock a little bit and then dive back in.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, if I've inspired anybody, then I will be really chuffed.